We move on then to Sonnet 130, and again I'm going to read a rendition or an attempted rendition of this so that hopefully everyone understands, just in case any of the language are a little difficult. My mistress's eyes never shine as brightly as the sun, and I have seen underwater coral that is far more red than her lips red. And if snow is considered a benchmark for what white is, well then I'd have to say that her breasts are an off-white yellow. And if it is said that hairs are like wires, well really it's just black ugly wires that grow on her head. And I have seen beautifully covered roses in red and white, but there are no such beautiful roses in her cheeks. They are not rosy. And in some perfumes there is so much delight to be had from their smell, whereas the breath that my mistress has reeks. I love to hear her speak, but I do not trick myself and pretend that it sounds as good as music, and I know music has a far more pleasing sound. And in my life, I've never seen a goddess go by, and my mistress, when she walks along the ground. And yet I swear to God, I think that my love is as rare as any that could be compared to all these false things. So we move on to the structure. It's a love style sonnet. Obviously it's sticking with the love style, even though it's being ironical, because ultimately it is probably a wonderfully loving idea that's actually the bottom here, because it says that my love is as rare. But the sonnet style there, it's supposed to be a traditional love poem, but for the majority of the poem it seems almost ironic or sarcastic. And again, with the structure, it is all sarcastic all the way through the end, and that kind of gives us a great technique, because it builds us up towards the end and then it flips it round in the last two lines, and we think actually that it makes it all the sweeter because of all that he's actually picked out. So now we've actually got nothing to attack the mistress in this case with, or he's got nothing to attack the mistress with. He's kind of stripped away all her faults before anyone else can say anything, and then just said how great she is. And then you've got the enjambment as well, which makes you consider some of the words like delight in this case and no. So both of them actually allow you to really stop and consider the beauty that he's representing that his wife doesn't have, his mistress, doesn't have. So the meaning here, well, the meaning is disgust for sweet talk. I mean, if you're going to spend most of the poem being sarcastic about sweet talk, then that's really quite interesting. I mean, as a concept, you've got the being real with a true appreciation. So he could actually, I mean, obviously in Elizabethan England, it was considered quite a high point for English language, and a lot of people would obviously been speaking a lot of poetry, and in fact, it was one of the ways of actually deeming themselves nobility is to actually have spoken in poetic form, even when you didn't need to. But the idea is that people are trying to make everything sound glorious and beautiful, and maybe the poet's actually kind of getting back at that, and what he really wants is people to start showing a true appreciation of things, and I guess we'd call it now being real with what's actually going on. And also one of the meanings, obviously, apart from the love that he has for his wife, which is the most obvious one, is the power of words. When we say these things, she is a goddess, or her eyes are like the sun, and or his eyes are like the sun, or whatever you want it to be. You think about this and how it breaks down, and it's really quite compelling. You can build a massively strong image of someone, and then someone else might just not see it, but obviously you've still got the power there in words to do so. With the images then, we've got these beautiful images like the roses, and obviously that's sensory as well. It's coming to our noses, and at the same time obviously we've got the idea of something like the sun, these classic cliches. I mean, that's another thing actually I should mention, if I don't mention it, for language. I mean, there's a lot of cliches in here. And obviously we've got the ugly items about the wires in her head, and I don't think anyone would ever get away calling a girl's breasts done unless the girl didn't know what done meant. Then after, so you've got the beautiful item contrasted with the ugly items, and then you've got the idea here as well, one of the image of one's own truth. So you've got it in the eye of the beholder, which is actually quite interesting, because we kind of pictures up an image of a guy whose face kind of really knows what it's talking about, and he really means it, like he knows his own truth and what he actually believes in about his mistress, which is quite interesting. So language then, we got the black wires here, obviously just to help us build a really strong image. We also have the alliteration, I never saw a goddess go, and the use of the repeated G in that line actually makes the line speed up, and obviously that goes with the word go, so it almost gives us kind of like a darting feeling, looking around for where this would be, and then he just kind of plunks us back after the dash with, well, my mistress, she walks against the ground. Interesting. And then the tone all the way through, it kind of sets you up and then drops you, and sets you up and then drops you, which is quite intriguing, quite knowing. And this kind of goes with the whole thing, like we're interested in what the person's saying. And if you just turned around at the beginning and just said, oh, I think my love is as rare as any other, then, you know, obviously we wouldn't have been interested. We would have just been thinking this is quite classic. But because the tone isn't kind of like dreamy and loving and romantic, it's more intriguing, more interesting. So the effect then, what does it get us thinking about? Well, it gets us thinking about the truth about people, you know, what they're actually like, you know, how people are actually selling other people to us and what they actually think of it. I mean, you've probably met 100 people in your life who think that the one they're with is the most beautiful, the most loving, the most anything, that person, etc., etc., is the one. And then 7 months later, you find they broke up. And obviously, it just kind of shows. It asks us to remember that people are people at the end of the day. They're not gods or goddesses. It reminds us as well what happens after romance. So when all these things have actually faded, maybe this is an older woman he's talking about, when all these things are faded, or an older partner, you never know with Shakespeare, when all this has actually faded, you know what happens afterwards, but they still have this love. It's not the physical things that he's got here. He's still actually got a kind of a mental link, a mental love to the person, or maybe they're still in love with all of this as it grows old. Who knows? And it makes us question also how perfect a person will really be, and in what way do we actually think they're perfect? Is it because of the way that they look, or is it because of actually who they are? So any of those things you can actually take and run and develop. Again, please feel free to add your own, because obviously the more comments that you actually have at the bottom with regards to smile points, then obviously the more things people are going to be able to put down in their exam.